They still whisper about that night in the 1830s when 3 women said enough. Adira, the quiet planner with eyes like trapdoors. Leora, the fighter who never forgot the whip. Zora, the mother whose baby didn't live to see sunrise. This wasn't a farm. It was a place that bred pain. Keys on rich belts. Babies priced like cattle. And then fire. Doors unlocked. Footsteps soft as prayer. And the masters didn't wake. By dawn, the South was hunting them. Silas Thorne, the cold tracker, wanted their heads. But the swamp knows secrets, and the women learned to turn sorrow into weapons. You will pity them. You will fear them. You will ask what justice means when the law is a whip. Because when Adira, Leora, and Zora finally face Thorne, the question isn't who survives. It's what kind of world will be born from their rage. The merciless sun hung high in the cloudless sky, casting harsh shadows across the breeding farm's cotton fields. Adira's fingers moved mechanically through the cotton plants, but her mind was elsewhere, counting the minutes between overseer patrols. 20 steps to the water barrel. 15 minutes until the next rotation. Her keen eyes tracked every movement, every pattern, storing them away like precious threads in a tapestry of survival. 30 paces to her left, Zora struggled to keep pace. Her body still weak from childbirth just days ago. Her movements were slow, deliberate, each bend causing her face to twist in pain. The overseer's whip cracked nearby, making her flinch. Dark sweat stains spread across her dress, and her breath came in short, labored gasps. Leora worked the row between them, her silence more threatening than any storm. The thick scars around her wrists caught the sunlight, permanent reminders of the time she'd fought back. But her hands never stopped moving, pulling cotton with mechanical precision, though her eyes burned with barely contained fury. Move faster. The overseer's voice boomed across the field. You lazy creatures ain't earning your keep. Adira watched him from the corner of her eye. Samuel Drake, new to the farm, but already notorious for his cruelty. He walked with a swagger, twirling his whip like it was an extension of his arm. She noted how he favored his left leg, how he took longer breaks in the shade of the big oak tree. Every weakness, every habit, she filed them away. Please, Zora whispered, stumbling slightly. I need water. Quiet, Adira murmured back, keeping her voice low. Drake's watching. 3 more minutes until he makes his rounds to the north field. The sun climbed higher, turning the air thick and heavy. Around them, other women worked the endless rows, their bodies bent like broken stalks. Some carried the same heavy roundness as Zora had just days ago. Proof of the farm's true purpose. The breeding farm's reputation spread across 3 counties. Its business conducted with the cold efficiency of a cattle auction. A sharp cry pierced the air from the direction of the main house. Another birth, another life brought into bondage. Leora's hands stilled for just a moment, her knuckles white around the cotton she held. One day, she breathed, so quiet only Adira could hear. They'll be the ones crying. The day dragged on, marked by the overseer's shouts and the rhythmic movement of tired bodies. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold, the women made their way back to the slave quarters. Zora could barely walk, leaning heavily on Adira's arm. That night, as darkness settled over the farm, Zora's baby took a turn for the worse. The infant's breathing grew shallow, his tiny body burning with fever. Zora cradled him, singing soft lullabies between her tears, while Adira tried to cool his head with damp cloths. Leora paced the small space like a caged animal, her shadow dancing on the walls in the dim light of their single candle. Near midnight, the baby's struggles ceased. His small body went still in his mother's arms, and Zora's anguished wail echoed through the quarters. The sound drew the attention of the night guard, who burst in with Drake close behind. What's all this racket? Drake demanded, his face twisted in annoyance. My baby, Zora sobbed, clutching the tiny bundle. My baby's gone. Drake's laugh was cruel, echoing in the small space. Well, ain't that a shame? Guess we'll have to reassign you sooner than planned. Can't have you taking up space without producing. Leora moved forward, but Adira's hand shot out, gripping her arm hard. The look that passed between them carried years of shared pain and rage. Master Thompson already has a buyer lined up, Drake continued, seeming to enjoy Zora's grief. Big man from Georgia likes them young and fertile. Might be just what you need to get over this unfortunate incident. He kicked the edge of Zora's skirt before turning to leave, the night guard following with a snicker. When their footsteps faded, Adira moved to Zora's side, wrapping her arms around the grieving mother. Leora stood rigid by the door, her voice tight with fury. They treat us worse than their dogs, breeding us like animals, selling our babies, mocking our pain. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and the first drops of rain began to fall, pattering against the worn roof. The sound grew stronger, drumming above them like nature's own fury. In the dim light, Adira could see tears streaming down Zora's face as she rocked back and forth, her empty arms crossed over her chest. "We can't let them take you to Georgia," Leora said, her voice barely audible over the rain. "We can't let them do this anymore." Adira remained silent, her mind working like it did in the fields, calculating, measuring, weighing options. The rain grew heavier, creating a curtain of sound that would mask their words, perfect for plotting, perfect for planning. They huddled closer together, three women bound by pain and determination. The candle light threw their shadows large against the wall, making them appear bigger than their circumstances. Zora's tears slowed, replaced by something harder in her eyes. Leora's rage simmered like a pot about to boil over. And Adira, her voice steady and sure, finally spoke. "Tomorrow night we move." The rain continued its relentless drumming. Nature's own conspiracy, keeping their whispered plans secret in the darkness. Dawn crept across the breeding farm like a guilty secret, painting the sky in shades of gray. Adira was already awake, had been for hours, standing near the doorway of the slave quarters. Her eyes tracked the guards' changing shifts, marking each detail with precision. Guard Thompson, the master's cousin, always started his morning rounds 5 minutes late, stopping to smoke his pipe behind the storage shed. Young Billy, barely 16, but already cruel as his elders, patrolled the eastern fence with a slight limp from a horse kick. Every weakness, every habit, Adira collected them like precious coins. Through the thin walls, she heard Leora's quiet movements. The scraping sound was barely audible, metal against metal, turning broken tools into weapons. They'd been gathering pieces for weeks. A broken plow blade here, a discarded nail there. Small things easily missed in daily counts. Zora moved through her morning tasks like a ghost, her face carefully blank as she carried water to the main house. But Adira saw how her eyes lingered on the ring of keys at Mrs. Thompson's waist, how she noted which key opened which door. Even in her grief, Zora's mind worked like theirs, mapping every possible path to freedom. "Girl!" The shout made Adira flinch. Overseer Drake stood in the yard, already sweating in the morning heat. "Get to the washing. Them sheets won't clean themselves." Adira kept her eyes down as she hurried to the washing area, but her mind never stopped working. The washing shed sat between the main house and the overseer's quarters, perfect for watching both buildings as she scrubbed sheets in the harsh lye soap. She counted footsteps, measured distance, noted patterns. Mid-morning brought Leora to the washing shed carrying a bundle of dirty clothes. As she dropped them beside Adira, something metal clinked softly between them. A needle-sharp point glinted briefly before disappearing under the laundry. "Sharp enough to slice through butter," Leora whispered, her voice barely a breath. "Made 3 more last night." Adira nodded slightly, keeping her movement steady and unremarkable. The night guard drinks heavy on Thursdays, sleeps at his post by midnight. They worked in silence after that, the rhythmic sound of washing covering any chance of being overheard. Around them, the farm continued its cruel daily dance. New girls were brought in from other plantations, their terror-filled eyes taking in the breeding pens. Older women, no longer deemed useful, were led away in chains. Near noon, Zora appeared with water for the washing women. Her face remained carefully blank, but her fingers brushed Adira's arm in a deliberate pattern as she passed the dipper. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. Their signal that she had information to share. They didn't dare speak more. Years of survival had taught them the danger of trust. Other slaves might break under questioning, might trade information for better treatment. Their plan could only survive in whispers between the 3 of them. The sun climbed higher, baking the earth and drawing sweat from every pore. Adira's hands were raw from the lye soap, but she kept washing, kept watching. She saw how the guard at the main gate dozed in the afternoon heat, how the dogs were fed at dusk, making them sleepy in the early evening hours. Evening brought the rough bread and thin soup that passed for dinner. The women ate in the yard, supervisors watching to ensure no one took extra portions. Overseers gathered near the porch, their loud voices carrying clearly in the evening air. "That new batch from Carolina's promising," Drake said, tearing into a chicken leg. "Young, strong-built, should breed well." Speaking of breeding, another overseer called out, "Got that arrangement sorted for the one who lost her pup." He jerked his head toward Zora. Drake's laugh was ugly. "Georgia man's paying top dollar. Says he's got a special touch with the difficult ones." The other overseers joined in his laughter, the sound like rocks grinding together. Adira felt Leora tense beside her, could almost hear her teeth grinding. Under the cover of darkness, she pressed her foot against Leora's, a silent reminder to stay calm. Across the yard, Zora continued eating, her face a mask of submission. But when she looked up, her eyes met theirs, and in that glance past years of shared pain transformed into iron determination. They had made their pact in whispers and touches, in shared looks and silent understanding. No words were needed. They had survived too much together to need them now. Their bond was forged in blood and loss, stronger than any oath spoken aloud. The moon rose full and bright, casting silver shadows across the farm. In the women's quarters, the usual sounds of night settled in: quiet crying, whispered prayers, the rustle of bodies trying to find comfort on hard pallets. But 3 women lay awake, their eyes open in the darkness. Adira counted the guards, footsteps as they passed. 12 steps, pause, turn, 8 steps to the corner. The night air carried the sound of boots on packed earth, growing fainter as the patrol moved away. Beside her, Leora's breathing was carefully controlled, her body coiled tight as a spring. The makeshift weapons were hidden in the straw of her pallet, their edges hungry for blood. Zora lay still as death on her pallet, her empty arms crossed over her chest. The memory of her baby's weight still haunted her. But tonight, that pain had crystallized into something harder, something dangerous. They listened as the night guard made his rounds, his footsteps growing distant. Beyond the walls, crickets sang their endless song. The moon climbed higher, casting bars of silver light through the cracks in the walls. In the distance, a dog barked once, then fell silent. The women remained awake, 3 separate hearts beating in terrible unison, waiting for tomorrow's night to fall. The moon hung full and cruel in the midnight sky as 3 shadows slipped from the slave quarters. Their feet, calloused from years of labor, moved silently across packed earth. Adira led the way, stolen keys clutched tight in her trembling hands. Each step had been planned, rehearsed in her mind 1,000 times. Behind her, Leora's fingers curled around her makeshift blade, a broken plow piece honed sharp against stones. Her breath came in quiet huffs, like a predator scenting blood. Zora brought up the rear, torch unlit but ready, her movement steady despite the terror clawing at her chest. They paused at the corner of the building. Adira held up her hand, listening. From the stables came the sound of drunken humming. Overseer Drake, right where they knew he'd be, deep in his Thursday night whiskey. The women exchanged glances in the darkness. No words were needed. Leora moved first, her bare feet silent on the dirt. The stable door creaked softly as she eased it open. Drake sat on an upturned bucket, bottle dangling from his fingers. He barely had time to look up before Leora was on him. One hand clamped over his mouth, stifling his startled cry. The other drove the blade up under his ribs. His eyes went wide with shock. This couldn't be happening. Not to him, not by their hands. But it was. Leora twisted the blade, feeling hot blood pour over her fingers. His struggles grew weaker, then stopped. "Quick now," Adira whispered, though it wasn't necessary. They dragged Drake's body behind a stack of hay bales. Zora's hands shook as she struck flint to steel, lighting the torch. Its flame cast dancing shadows on the stable walls. The breeding shed stood dark and terrible against the star-filled sky. How many women had suffered within its walls? How many children born into chains, torn from their mother's arms? Zora's empty arms ached with remembered loss. They moved like ghosts across the yard. Adira's keys opened the shed's heavy lock. Inside, the torchlight revealed empty chains hanging from walls, straw pallets stained with old blood. Memories of pain lived in every shadow. Zora touched the torch to a pile of straw. Flames leapt, hungry, into darkness. They fed the fire with blankets, with wooden pallets, with everything that would burn. Soon the whole shed blazed, casting orange light across the farmyard. The house, Adira breathed. Before they wake, they ran through shadows to the main house. Adira's hands trembled as she fitted key after key until the lock turned. The door swung open on silent hinges. Inside, the house slept in wealthy comfort. Plush carpets muffled their steps. Fine furniture cast strange shadows in the darkness. Somewhere upstairs, a child coughed in sleep. Leora gripped her blade tighter. "I'll take the master. I'll handle the missus," Adira said, producing another sharpened metal shard from her dress. Zora nodded, torch held high. "I'll make sure none escape." They split up, moving through the house like avenging spirits. Leora took the stairs two at a time, finding the master's bedroom door ajar. Master Thompson snored loudly, one arm draped over his wife. Leora stood over them for a moment, watching the faces of the people who had orchestrated so much suffering. Then she moved, swift and silent. Down the hall, a muffled cry, then silence from the mistress's room where Adira had gone. Zora moved from room to room, touching her torch to curtains, to bedding, to anything that would catch. The fire began as a glow, then a roar, racing through the dry, fine wood of the plantation house. Smoke filled the hallways. They met again at the bottom of the stairs, their faces lit by the growing inferno. Outside, shouts of alarm were beginning to sound across the yard as slaves and remaining overseers woke to the blaze. "Now," Adira said, "north, to the swamp." They ran out into the chaotic yard, past confused guards and crying slaves, past the roaring flames of the house and the shed. They did not look back at the world of pain burning behind them. They ran for the tree line, for the dark, knowing water, for freedom. They ran as the first shouts of hunters began to rise at their backs, and as the first light of a new day, a day of reckoning, began to bleed into the sky.